This is the Extensionists, Conversations with Great Thinkers in Agriculture. I'm Toban Dyck.
And I'm Jay Whetter. Hey, Toban.
Hey, Jay.
How's it going?
Good.
Are you feeling this bright early morning with podcasting?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. I mean, I love them. I love the early mornings.
Yeah.
I'm sure after lunch. No, everything's down.
Morning is better.
Everything's
But this
down.
is probably the earliest we've recorded. We started at 8.
That's true.
Which again isn't
That's true.
super early, especially during seeding season.
But we got to have a sleepover. So Jay spent the night at the farm last night. So that was fun. That was fun. We should have recorded something last night.
So Tobin has a hot tub, so we sat in the hot tub and had a drink and talked about our families and who was the funny one and had an idea for a podcast for next year.
That's right. We did. What was it?
Can we share that?
Yeah, we can.
Having our fathers on.
Oh, yes, we did. But then we also said we're going to have our mothers on too.
Yeah.
And we talked about that. So it's now out there in the universe.
That's right. So it's got to happen.
It's got to happen. I think that'll be good.
Who is the influence on your funniness?
Do you think I'm funny, Jay?
Yeah. Well, sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, I can be.
Once in a
I can
while.
be. So, but this is a good question. So, comedy, like I feel like I'm funniest when I'm
Drunk.
No, maybe
Tired.
but no, but like when I'm comfortable.
Oh, okay.
Like when I'm super comfortable and I can be aware of my, like I can take myself out of, like I'm sitting here right now and I can actually just have the confidence and comfortability or comfort and just to kind of take myself away and like look at myself sitting on this couch right now. And then I can kind of maneuver things and I can get the pace right and get the delivery exactly how I want it. And if I can do that, I feel I can be funny. And then I know that I'm funny too, instead of being accidentally funny.
Right. Well, I think what people don't realize is that comedy, for the most part, it requires a lot of practice.
I think so much.
Like I shouldn't say not very many people are naturally funny. Of course they are. And we all like to laugh and it's good for our souls. But when people don't just get up on stage and start rattling off jokes and their timing is perfect and everything else, they practice.
Yeah.
There's a really good, I would say, a public speaking kind of lesson in that.
Oof. Yeah. Absolutely. I think, I do think they're some of the best communicators because you just have to be, right? I mean, it's all you up there, and it's all kind of your own material. And I feel like Ag Extension. I mean, I could learn so much from that. Yeah, and I mean, I say that like Ag Extension exists outside of this other thing. I'm thinking I'm going to learn so much from it, right? Like I want to learn about how to do things better and practice and I think I rattle a lot about practice because it's one of those things where I feel like I should do it more. So that's why I tell people it's so important. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where it's like,
well, I like it. It's your buzzword.
My
It's
trope.
your trope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think so I often throw to you when I reference practice.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
But just because I know you like talking about it, but I totally agree with you. Like I'm not making fun at all. I like that suggestion that good communication requires practice. I think that is key and essential. Yeah.
And I fully like it is because I know I want to do it more, and I know that I'd be better at it if I did it more, right? Yeah. If I think of like writing, speaking, these are things that are part of my day to day and yours too. That I know that if I'd go like, dude, should I take a Toastmasters course or should I, you've done some writing clinics in the past and some, and I think about, about that. And I think I tell people to do it because I know that I should do it more, which is kind of unfair, but also just a little bit telling. Yeah. Anyway.
The idea of getting up and telling jokes makes me really nervous because I don't want them to be terrible. But at the same time, I think, well, maybe that's actually a good reason to do it. Yeah. Is that work on a couple of jokes, sort of warm up the audience with some interesting, funny stories. I think it's good training from a communications perspective. I feel like I need to try it out. Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Yeah.
Do you like what you're hearing and want to support the Extensionists?
If you are an agriculture company or association looking for a powerful way to get your message in front of Canadian farmers, then partner with us. Our listeners are farmers from coast to coast.
When you advertise with us, your brand isn't just another commercial break. It becomes part of our story. Ads on the Extensionists are personal and trusted. Our listeners value what they hear on the podcast.
Whether you're looking for a 60-second ad somewhere throughout the podcast or even an exclusive episode sponsorship, we have options that will work for you.
So if you're ready to get your message out there and connect with farmers across Canada, let's talk. Visit theextensionists.com for more information.
Welcome to the podcast. Our guest today is Dean Jenkinson, and Dean is a comedian, well-known Canadian comedian, and did a lot of work with CBC over the years, and so you might know him from there. And he's also now artistic director of the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, which has been going on for, I think it just had its 25th year. And Dean, you've probably been involved for all of those years, and now you're now the artistic director. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.
Right on. So Toban, what were you going to say?
Well, just before you clapped and got this podcast going, you were talking about kind of comedy, and you said why talking about me and my love of practice and all this kind of stuff. But a long time ago, we had a podcast guest. He's an MLA in Winnipeg, Dyck Brar, and we were talking about agricultural extension, which is basically just a communications. It's a extension's a term that the ag community has kind of adopted and made into like research communications, extending research to farmers essentially. And he often talked about like how we're not creative enough with our extension. Like we could do, and he's often said we could do like singer-songwriter, like we could get a research up there playing guitar and doing a singer-songwriter, writing songs about weeds in wheat. And I think he, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he even said comedy. Yeah, I thought, how fun would it be to go up there, go to Ag Days in Brandon and have a stand-up routine around like sclerotinia or like some sort of really specific disease in a crop. Anyway, I just want here's an idea. Here's an idea, Dean, for your next stand-up.
I've got so much on sclerotinia.
I knew it. So much material he's never had a chance to use.
That's right. It doesn't go over terribly well with the normal audience. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah. Hey, so Dean, you've got a couple of teenagers. Did they find you funny?
Yeah, this is a good question.
No, I think they find you about as funny as any teenager finds their parent. So no, but I also lean into doing what dads do, which is trying to make them groan and roll their eyes. So
yeah.
It's all we all play our parts in the house.
Are they funny? Have they picked up on the family business?
I mean, they're funny in their own way as people, but I don't think any of them have the bug. My what is she now? 16-year-old daughter, Kara. She's into musical theater at Grant Park, so she likes to be on stage and perform. But no, I don't think she has aspirations to go do 5 minutes at an open mic when she turns 18.
No. Well, should we all do that? Should we have that aspiration?
I think that's a good. That's a good. I've got a buddy who I sing with on Wednesday nights. I'm part of a group, neighborhood like a cappella chorus, and he's decided when he turns 65. That's when he's going to go do his first open mic stand-up comedy thing. And he's like, it's a real milestone for him. So maybe we should all say, hey, on this date, I'm going to get up in front of a bunch of strangers and tell them a few jokes and see if it's for me.
Can you talk about that time, like the first time you did it?
I was in university. I was like a year and a half out of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a good student. I was like a nerd, like almost top of the class. I went to IB at Silver Heights, and I was good at math and science, and I was good at English and history, and I didn't have any kind of clue what I wanted to do career-wise or what I wanted to study in university. And I saw architecture and said, well, that's kind of creative and it's kind of math and science and it's kind of engineering. It's got a little bit of everything. Maybe I'd like that. And a year and a half in, I was like, I don't have any particular talent for this. And I see people in my classes who do, and they're going to be great architects, and that's not me. And I'm just like I'm just trying to like copy ideas. And there was nothing up here that said architecture is for you. So I had no particular talent or passion for it. And I was flipping pizzas at Sabaros at Polo Park as a summer job. And when it was down and we'd be just, shooting the breeze, I was the guy who would make people laugh from time to time.
Right on.
And somebody said, you should go do the open mic night at Yuck Yucks. And you're 19 and full of, stupidity.
Yeah,
You're young and dumb and full of bravery. You got no fear. And I'm like, I should go do the open mic at Yuck Yucks. And so I signed up, and I did. And I made a little poster, and I put it up in the break room and said, hey, this night at Yuck Yucks, come on down and see me do comedy. And everybody came, and people from school came. And the first night was like great because I had all these people there to support me, and I was all full of bravado, and I prepared my 5 minutes, and it went over really well. So much so that like the headliner kept like calling back to me and my thing because he thought it was hilarious that I thought I had crushed the room when all I had done is make my friends laugh, right? And it wasn't until like the third time I got on stage that I was like, oh, it doesn't go great every time, does it? Like this kind of bombed. I kind of bombed on my third time out. And then you sort of, keep doing it, and you find, yes, some nights you're going to do really well. Some nights you'll do 6 out of 10, and some nights you can't buy a laugh to save your life. And you feel like I've never been funny and I'll never be funny again. And what am I doing? But yeah, that was my first time. It was Yuck Yucks in Osborne Village, 1990, I think.
What was like?
And I kept,
Yeah, so you and I are pretty much exactly the same age. But I was
there you go.
so did you tell jokes? Like someone else's
what was that
jokes, or did
routine
you
like?
write
Yeah.
your own material? Did you tell
I
stories?
wrote my own little
Yeah.
5-minute set.
Yeah.
I think it was like, I think some of it was about like movie sequels. There were like a bunch of movie sequels out that summer, and I was, on the cutting edge of telling people these are just, remakes of things, and they're silly, and there's Die Hard, and then there's Die Harder, and what's next? Die Hardest? Oh my gosh. And I think I did some like bad celebrity impressions and stuff, and it was
Amazing.
it was a thing.
Yeah.
So what is studying for a routine or stand-up routine look like? What does research look like from your perspective?
I mean, everybody's got their own process, and I think the process is always kind of fluid unless you're somebody who's very locked into this is how I do it. But I think in general, you just try to have your antenna up, and when something funny happens, or you think of something funny, or an idea strikes you as interesting, jot it down, and then come back to it and think about it, and think about what your angle is on it, or how you want to present it to an audience. And whether you want to come at it straightforward or come at it from the side, and you can sit and actually write, or you can sort of talk it through so that you're saying it the way you would actually say it, rather than a lot of the comics I admire are ones who the joke wording is very precise. There's a comic out in Vancouver named Jacob Samuel, and he won a Juno Award for his album Horsepower. And I saw an interview with Jacob, who's joke writing I really admire, and they were asking him, like, you're very specific about the words, right? You don't deliver a joke differently from night to night based on just sort of how it comes out of your mouth. And he said, I appreciate that, and that actually comes from a weakness, which is I can't ad lib at all. Like if I stray from my script, I'm going to like screw it up. So I write it down the way I want it, and then I deliver it exactly the way I've written it down, and I keep that going from night to night, and it totally works. I really admire that. And some of the time I can be that way, and some of the time I'm more somebody who says, well, I kind of know what I want to say, but I might not say it exactly the same way each night.
Oh, that's super fascinating. I in my head, it's like I feel like I would find it very hard to be present when I knew the crowd wasn't with me. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
I've spoken, and Jane and I both have spoken a lot, never done anything remotely close to comedy, but like it's hard. Like I feel like it's disruptive, and then I find like I don't even have access to my memory, and it gets really difficult to ad lib in those situations. So I imagine, and yeah, you maybe walk us through a scenario or talk a little bit about that, because I imagine you have to be good at that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're identifying, I think everybody can relate to. I can
Mhm.
relate to it, where you're on stage and you're like, nothing's getting through,
Mm.
nothing's landing. I feel like I'm speaking a different language. Everybody's looking at me like, who is this? And what is he doing up there? And what is he talking about? And it's a very, like, it's like nightmare fuel, right? It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
for
I had a
sure.
dream like this, where you're on
Yeah.
stage and
100%.
it feels like everybody in the crowd speaks a different language than you, and they're all on the same page going, we don't like this and we really wish it would stop.
Is that when you talk to
And
farmers? Is that your small town experience?
I mean, it happens everywhere. It happens everywhere,
Okay.
from time to time, and it's very hard in those moments to even, like, it kind of feels out of body, where
Yeah.
you're just like watching this train wreck, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that poor guy up there talking away,
Yeah.
and nobody likes it.
Well, nobody
Uh,
likes it. Well, so is there a way out of that,
Yeah.
or once you're locked into that with an audience, it's really hard to get it back, and you just like talk through to the end of the
Yeah.
set.
You
and
know,
you're
you
out of
have
there.
extra amount of minutes to kill, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of, things you can try. Like, I've seen comics pull out of a skid just by staying the course and not getting
Mm.
flustered and not commenting on the fact that this is not going well. But sometimes you can break the spell by just acknowledging this isn't working, and then you've said something true and honest that they can connect to and grab onto and say, okay, this guy's not an idiot, he's not
Yeah,
crazy,
okay.
we're not crazy,
Yeah.
right? Every what we thought was going on, he thinks is going on too,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of reset with them and start from a little bit of common ground, where you just acknowledge that it's not going well. But it's a risky thing to do, because if you acknowledge it and nothing improves,
Yeah.
then you're all just sitting there talking about
Awkward.
how, yeah, how awful it is. And the other thing that can happen is, when a comic gets on stage, and you've been on stage a bazillion times, you can be having a good show. It's not an amazing show, and you're not like crushing it. It's not like the best show you've ever done, but in your brain, you're kind of comparing it to the best show you've ever done, right? That's the bar that you're
Yeah.
trying to reach. So, when you throw out a joke that kind of works 9 out of 10 most of the time, and it gets a 6 out of 10, if you comment on how that joke didn't do well, as far as the audience knows, that joke did fine. We laughed.
Yeah.
What were
Yeah.
you looking for? What were you looking for? And now it's weird, because what is he talking
Right.
about? That like,
Right.
he's making a comment on the fact that we didn't like that, but we liked that just fine. So now
Yeah.
you're right. So you got to be careful not to, like, sink yourself by saying, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that didn't go over. All right.
Oh,
And then,
geez.
yeah, the audience who is probably, well, I'm just thinking of a small town audience. They all know each other. They know what's landing and
Yeah.
what's not, and what isn't. But you assume that it's not landing. Meanwhile, they've probably laughed harder than they've ever laughed in their whole lives. But they're just their
Yeah,
bar is
and
a
there's
little.
lots of audience. Yeah, and there's lots of audiences that aren't going to be terribly vocal, but they're smiling and they're
Yeah.
enjoying it, and you see their, like, chin go up every once in a while, a little acknowledgement. That was a good one. But yeah, so you always just have to sort of put yourself in their shoes and try to imagine, what are they thinking of this right now, because you don't want to be assuming anything that could be, like, grossly wrong, because now
Right.
Yeah.
you're gonna just bring water into the boat.
My
That's-
my uncle's girlfriend, let's say, she went to Sloan. She went
Wait,
to.
Like how you say, let's say, like, this fictional person.
Exactly.
Well, I just have a
Oh,
hard.
you're describing the relationship. I see. You're,
There's
you're
more there
hedging
that we
on
need
what
to
the
unpack.
relationship label might be.
Well, no, the only thing I'm getting at is that my uncle's 80. So I don't know when you stop saying girlfriend, when you're
Right, okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Woman
Thank
friend.
you.
His sweetheart,
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying.
his lady friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, she went to Sloan in Brandon.
Oh, so
The band Sloan played in the Westman Centennial Auditorium in Brandon a couple months ago. But it was a make good show because they had canceled during the winter a year ago or so. Anyway, but the audience was just dead. She said it was embarrassing how quiet they were. And so Chris Murphy from Sloan gets up and said, "Yeah, so we didn't show up the first time, and you guys didn't show up. You guys didn't show up this time."
Have you ever done that? Yeah.
It reminds me of there was a kind of famous at the time interview with Joaquin Phoenix on David Letterman,
Oh, I
where
remember
he
that
just
one.
came out and he's like just wasn't
Yeah.
like he would give like these little grunt kind of an answers. And during the break, one of the writers gave Dave a line that he closed the interview with, which was, "Well, Joaquin, I'm sorry you couldn't join us tonight."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
I remember that. Oh,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange. Like sometimes you can tease a crowd and they'll enjoy it, and sometimes you tease a crowd and they're like, "No, we're not into that." And as an audience member, I'm never, I don't really respond well when a comic or a music artist is going, "Come on, you guys, you can do better than that." I'm like, we're not
Yeah.
the ones who are performing, right? We're
yeah.
like, and I don't like when comics are like, so they'll tell you some autobiographical fact. So I just, I don't know. I don't want to like pick a bad example, but like I'm dating now, and then there's like, the crowd is waiting for the next sentence, and they're going, "That's the appropriate response, right?
Yeah.
You guys didn't like that or whatever, and you're just like, no, we're not, we didn't offer any opinion. We're just waiting for
Yeah.
you to do the next thing, right? So
The funny part.
don't tell us what we're thinking, right?
Yeah.
We're just thinking, keep it going."
Yeah. Well, so did you get enough on the practice?
I'll come back to it if I want.
So there's a few things.
I don't even know if I answered the question.
Don't tell me what to do, Jay. I'm just kidding.
I'm practicing telling you what to do.
Exactly.
So I want to talk about just the art of public speaking, because the last guest we had was a guy named Owen Roberts, who actually teaches communications at the University of Guelph, or he did for a long time. And we were saying, like, what are some practices that people should think about with communication? And he feels like we've lost the art of public speaking. And and so as a comedian, I mean, you are actually public speaking. You're not, again, I'm delivering a speech, but like, are there public speaking skills that, like, comedy skills that you would recommend anyone doing a presentation somehow incorporate? Is that a risk, or is that something people really should be doing, trying to be funny?
I mean, I think if you can tap into using humor in whatever you're doing, I think there are lots of advantages to it. But there's obviously a lot of mines you can step on if you think, "Oh, I'm going to make my work presentation funny." It's you've kind of increased the risk reward ratio, right? It's higher risk and potentially higher reward.
Yeah.
You can play it safe and just deliver it straight, or you can be like, "I'm going to do a joke off the top," and then, or "I'm going to try to, make some funny asides and some funny comments." But, I think there are definitely ways. There's a great comic out on the East Coast named Peter White that we've had to the Winnipeg Comedy Festival a number of times. And he wrote a book about using humor in your everyday life. And
nice.
like a good friend and companion and co-worker, I ordered a book and I've yet to read it. But Peter White has a book on using humor in your workplace and your everyday life. I think as far as, public speaking skills and practicing, I mean, I just did it. You heard it. I do a lot of ums and stuff, but don't do that. Don't do that. I'm still bad at that. I still do ums that aren't strategic in comedy timing or anything else. They're just lazy placeholders. I think the best advice that comics get is record yourself and listen back and be horrified by all of your bad habits that you have that you maybe don't even know you have. But, slow down. And I think good advice that I got early that I pass along whenever anybody says, "Do you have any advice for me?" I just say, like, don't go on stage like thinking about trying to get the laugh. Go on stage thinking about trying to relate what it is you're trying to say, right? Trying to connect them to what you're trying to say, and not like race through the setup to get to the punchline, because that's the part you want to land, right? It's only going to land if you make everything else land. So take your time, slow down, and have in your mind, I want to say this thing that I want to say. I want to make them understand what it is,
Yeah.
and to understand what my perspective on it is, and to understand how I feel about it, and to communicate that both in the choice of words that I use and in the way I say it and the emotion that I convey. And sometimes you do that by, right, if you want to communicate that you're mad about it, you let that be there. Sometimes if you want to communicate you're mad about it, you take the backdoor route and the punchline reveals that you're mad about it. You don't give that away up front, but just to be intentional about what you're doing, I guess.
Well, that kind of makes me think about coming into being a comedian with something to say, or something like you're not just up there telling jokes, but you actually have an opinion about what's going on in the world, and you use comedy to send that message. Like, I'm just thinking about like agriculture extension, like they're always trying to send a message to say farmers about how to do a practice differently or a new way. I was thinking, yeah, so you're approaching, so maybe that isn't your, like, do you, with your comedy, are you trying to share an opinion about the world?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. And when I say, say what I say about communicating what you want to say to the audience, it doesn't even have to be like, I think this is bad, or I think these people, right? It doesn't have to be a take on the world or a commentary on the world, but just whatever the joke is, whatever the story you're telling them, whatever the ride is, like, make sure you get that across to them. Like, I think about there's a great comic in Toronto named Todd Graham, and it's all very short, absurd one-liners. And so it's not necessarily a take on the world, but in order for the jokes to land, he has to make sure that he takes you on the story he takes you, and does the reversal in the punchline that you will land. Like a great Todd Graham joke, as he says, I was walking by my neighbor's house the other day and I smelled toast. And I was like, oh, I hope nobody's having a stroke in there. So
Yeah. So when you think of your routines over the years, like, do you have jokes that you go back to every time? And would you be up for sharing one? I know it's early in the morning today.
I think a joke that I've been doing like for forever and a day, and it reveals itself to me how long I've been doing it, is because I say my dad just got bifocals. So my dad probably would have gotten bifocals 25 years ago, So now I'm a 55-year-old guy and my dad's in his 80s. And so when I say my dad just got bifocals, I'm like, that's I don't even know how credible that is.
Right.
So
He's
I've
got
changed the just
trifocals
got
now.
to,
Yeah.
but the joke is it's just a slightly disguised dick joke, which is my dad just got bifocals. So you lift the head, you look at the words on the page, it jumps right at you. He loves them, but the other day he gives me an elbow and he says, "And now your mom's breasts look huge." And I'm like, "That's not a bonding moment, father and son." And then the little tag is, "And now my mom wants bifocals and she doesn't even need them." So I've been doing that joke forever and a day, and it used to be about a 60-year-old guy, and now it's about an 80-year-old guy.
And now my mom wants bifocals. Right on.
So
And she doesn't even need them. For those of you who don't get the joke.
So do you? I'm going to go back to practice. Do you practice? Which is, I think, a dumb question, because I feel like you probably do, although you can answer to the contrary. What does that look like for you? Do you try to kind of get the words down? Like do you practice in front of a mirror? Do you record yourself and listen back and like?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most comics, practicing is like you get a sense of what you think, how the joke will go. And then you get on stage and you say it in front of a crowd. And you may, in the telling of it, sort of intuitively or instinctively say it a little different, because maybe you wrote it down on a pad and paper, or you typed it out on your laptop, and you said it the way you write and not the way you speak. So you might change it into the way you speak, on stage. And then most comics have a phone, and I see a lot of comics will like set up a tripod and they'll just film it on their phone, and they might post it online, or they might not. It might just be for them. But you watch it back, or you listen back, and you listen to how you did it, and you listen to what works and what didn't work, and you think about how you might change it the next time. And so the practice a lot is just sort of getting in those reps on stage in front of a crowd, and just sort of, keeping what's working and adding to it and subtracting what doesn't work. And a lot of the time, you will have a joke that you believe in, you think there's something funny there, but you can't get it to work, and you might leave it alone for a while and not try it again, and then you might just finally unlock it one day. Like I there's a joke that I do from time to time, and I can't remember. I used to word it differently, and it would never get anything. It would never get anything. I couldn't get it to work, and I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a joke in here that like could actually get a laugh. And then eventually, I landed on wording like this, or very similar to this, which is, I'm a big believer in karma. I do think what goes around comes around. So I know if I treat somebody very poorly, they had it coming. The circle is complete. And so it was that kind of idea that my bad actions don't result in bad karma for me. It's
the other.
My bad actions are you getting your karma.
That's great. I love that.
But I couldn't, for years, I would like try that joke out and I couldn't get it to work. And I don't remember how I worded it that wasn't landing, but it wasn't landing. And then finally I stumbled onto that wording, and that seems to land 99% of the time with the crowd.
Well, I think it's a great example, though, of public speaking, where you try something, you believe that it should work and that it can work, and it doesn't work the first few times, but you stick to it, right? And you keep honing it, you keep working on it. And I think there's something about comedy. I mean, this is preaching to the choir here, but about like the medium kind of belies the amount of work in the background, right? I mean, you're up there, you're making people laugh, you're giving them a great kind of light experience. But I've always found with comedy, there's so much depth there, more so than lots of presenters I listen to. And I think that's a really, there's a strong takeaway there, I think, for the ag community and for communications, where it's like that. Yeah, to get it to that point, it requires so much comfort with your material and with yourself and with the interaction between audience. And you can correct me anytime, Dean, but that's the feeling I get when I see a good comic. Like there's so much there.
Yeah. I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg kind of stuff, right? You get to see the tip of the iceberg, but you don't necessarily see everything that goes on underneath. And I think it does vary from person to person, right? I mean, there are these extraordinarily charismatic, gifted people who, can just go live their life and then get on stage every night and just sort of talk and kind of create stuff on stage from night to night without sitting and, doing any kind of, so it varies from person to person, but I think like everything else in the world, right, it's all getting the reps in, right? And, every night you get up and you're working on it. And in a perfect world, the image I have in my head is like getting on stage and doing your jokes every night is like putting your blade on the sharpening stone. But if you're doing it wrong, or you're not doing it thoughtfully, you're not going to end up with a sharper blade. You can just dull your blade down to nothing, right? Because you're just getting up and saying it, and you're not really connecting with it, and you're not, and your act becomes something that's kind of calcified, and you no longer connect with it. It's just words you say from night to night to night, and you lose a connection with it, and it becomes stale and dated, and your takes are all very 15 years old and kind of cringy, and you're just completely unaware because all this stuff used to work, and you just get up and you say it and you say it and you say it and you say it, and every night it gets less and less and less potent. And so you've always got to try to be like, an expression that my wife uses, who's a writer, and right now she works writing in the PR department at United Way Winnipeg. But she says you don't have to reinvent the wheel; you just have to reinflate the tire. And so that's an image that I try to hold on to, because I think that's a great metaphor. Which is, I don't need to like start from scratch, but I just need to make sure that I'm keeping everything pumped up and working and inflated, and so you're not you're not driving around this old thing that from day to day just gets more and more wear and tear on it until it just blows out and goes in the ditch, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
that was that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something, I mean, I can relate to that. Like
Yeah.
kind of, you do something for, decades and you just become used to doing it. It becomes muscle memory and you think tired tropes.
Tired, yeah. You need to pump those tires. To
Yeah. No,
pump up those tires.
that's a great,
I was thinking, like in agriculture extension. I know this isn't your world, Dean, but
it is now.
yeah, it is now. But what we don't do,
I feel like we've been on parallel tracks the whole time.
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I'm talking about stand up, and then you go, "That's fascinating for farmers," and I'm just like, I really have no clue how farmers are going to apply any of what I'm saying to anything they do. But
Well,
sure, let's
you're
go
right.
with that.
I love it.
but I do find farmers funny, and they do like a laugh, and that probably is some comic relief because sometimes their job is stressful. But and we can get into that. I just wanted to just make one comment about it in the world of agriculture extension. We're I don't know whether it's not afraid or it's just we don't even think of the power of making it personal or telling stories about how this connects with, like, we just relate science. We relate science. We don't really get to know the person delivering the message at all. And I think that in comedy, it's the person delivering the message is everything, right? And I think, and the message is secondary to connecting with the person. And in agriculture extension, I don't even think we try to make a personal connection in a lot of cases. But I think we could learn from comedy and comics and the power of being vulnerable or telling personal stories and then kind of getting to the message. I think there's a real art in that we could all learn from.
No, I think you're definitely onto something. I think, and yeah, I feel like, despite the fact that this is something I've been doing for 3 decades of my life, I feel like very late in my life, I sort of, like, if you'd asked 25 or 30-year-old me what story meant and what is a story and what is the power of story, I would have had a very answer, like a really kind of rudimentary, kind of right but mostly wrong answer. I think very late in life I'm starting to, in small ways and in emerging ways, open my eyes to the power of telling stories and what that means as far as just civilization. Like it's enormous when you start peeling back layers of the onion and understand what stories mean to human beings and human civilization and the culture you're in and how we see ourselves and where we think we're going and where we think we've been. And so yeah, I think, if I had it to do over again, I think I'd go back and try to figure all that out much earlier, because I feel like I'm just starting to understand it, and I don't think I apply it terribly well on stage. I think the best comics are the ones who, whether they know they're doing it or not, are telling a relatable story that has a beginning and a middle and an end and a lesson, whether it's articulated or not articulated, but just sort of implicit and understood. I think that's where the real connection and the real magic lies. And when I see comics who get up and just, are extremely memorable, it's because they've connected what they've said to a story that resonates with the audience, and not just they made me laugh 3 times every minute for 45 minutes. Because, that's just like, in a way, that's just like sugar, 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 and then at the end of it, you're like, yeah, that felt good, but you don't really. It wasn't like a meal, There was nothing necessarily satisfying or nourishing about it, and I think the secret sauce is in figuring that out or tapping into that.
Are there?
Is there,
Yeah, you go ahead, Toban. Yeah.
is there something specific to what you just said that you're working on now?
The short answer is no. The short answer is, like, at the moment, my life is mostly behind the scenes in comedy. My day-to-day bill-paying work is mostly producing the Winnipeg Comedy Festival every year, helping Frantic Films produce the 5 TV shows that get made at CBC Comedy Festival every year. So we just finished the festival, but right now we're in the process of turning these, 2-hour live tapings into a 44-minute show.
Hmm.
So there's 3 steps in every each of the 5 galas to go from here to down here. And then I'm also helping to produce the debaters on CBC Radio.
Oh,
And so
awesome.
all that work is not me on stage talking to a crowd and telling my story or giving my take on anything. So I've kind of stepped away from that a fair bit over the past few years. Whether it was intentional or just that's the way life has gone, we could discuss. Some of it's intentional and some of it's just like, oh yeah, I really don't perform as much as I used to, and I'm kind of fine with that. I'm kind of sad about that.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, but so
That-
no, at the moment, if you ask me what are you excited about talking about on stage, I'm like, I gotta I'm that guy who's like, I'm gonna get back into the gym and get in shape any day now. I'm gonna start.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna get back in shape.
Oh my God, Dean, that's very relatable. That's hilarious.
I was just gonna say, I'm glad you brought up the debaters because that's a show I mean, Comedy Festival. I think they did a number of tapings of that show there. But I do try to listen to that every week. But my question is like, it comes across as ad lib, to the audience listening. But there's a lot of prep and practice. Can you give us a bit of a behind the scenes?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of making you wish you didn't know how the sausage was made, I remember my mailman at my old address. He recognized my name from hearing me on Debaters.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're the guy from, like, you're a comedian, you're on the Debaters? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, so tell me, because I think I know. I think you know the topic you're going to debate, but you don't know which side you're on until Steve tells you. And I had to burst his bubble and say no. So the process is, there's a team of people that I get to be part of that pitches our senior producer ideas for topics. What if it's cake versus pie? What if it's fork versus spoon? What if it's nothing beats a night at the karaoke bar? What if it's, brothers are better than sisters, or grandparents are a bad influence, right? So we pitch all these ideas, and we've been doing it for 20 years. And there's how many episodes in a season? How many debates in a season? I can't even tell you off the top of my head, but it's dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
And, the show creators have told us that in their first season or two, there was an executive who was like, your show is great, but you're going to run out of topics in 2 years, right? And 20 years later, we're still like startled. We've never done camping? What? Right? And we'll look through the database. There must have been a camping debate. Anyway, so we pitch topics. And then, we have a city that we're going to go to. We're going to do 2 nights of tapings. There's going to be 5 debates each night. So there's 10 topics we need to select. They need to have a variety of, right? It can't just be like cake versus pie and chicken versus beef, right? You got to have they can't all be the same. So you've got to say, okay, is there too much that's about family? Is there too much that's about this, right? We need a little variety so the audience isn't getting more of the same. So there's a lot of care that our exec producer takes in making sure that every night has variety. And then we need to cast 2 comics for each debate. And a lot of care goes into figuring out, okay, well, this guy's got, material in their act about their kids or whatever. They might be a good fit here. And so basically, and we go through the casting process of figuring out who's going to be on what side. We don't want it to be all, straight white dudes. So we got to make sure there's some diversity. We got to make sure there's some representation. We got to make sure that there's different voices, that there's female perspectives, right? You can't have a debate about marriage that's like 2 40-year-old white guys, because who cares, right? So get some different takes on stuff. And then once you cast it, you set the comics to work. Here's your resolution. Here's how we see the debate kind of being about, right? So if it's like, there's one coming up that I pitched that's movie theaters are still the best way to see a movie, right? And so our exec producer's like, okay, well, we did home theaters 5 seasons ago. So we got to make sure we tell them, like, it's not just about watching it in your living room on your big screen TV or going to the movie theater. We got to make sure that they like, you can watch it on a plane, you can watch it on your phone now. We got kids who watch it on their tablet, right? You got that, right? So make sure that we cover all that ground, right? And so you get all these like kind of wish list instructions out to people, and then you want them to submit a draft of their opening argument and their closing
Okay.
argument, and there's
Okay.
word count restrictions,
Oh, wow.
and there's
Yeah.
content restrictions because it's CBC, and so we'll get drafts in, and I spent yesterday reading first drafts of people's stuff and sending notes back saying, this is terrific, or this seems like you seem to take a long time. Like there's 130 words of your 270 word opening that's just getting to this first joke. Could we tighten that up
Yeah.
so that you get to that joke and then you still got more real estate you can use? So it's quite an involved process. And then on the night, there can be a lot of stuff that happens spontaneously. There can be a lot of funny reactions and asides and ad-libbed lines and stuff. And Steve, God bless him, we deliberately don't show Steve anything the comics are planning to
Okay.
do,
Awesome.
so that his reactions are entirely authentic.
Okay, right on.
Oh,
And
that's so great.
and his and his responses aren't pre-rehearsed. But yeah, they've got a structure to work in so that on the night, if nothing funny happens spontaneously, there's still something to
Right.
fall back on, right?
Sometimes it seems like nothing happens funny spontaneously. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
always
sometimes.
it doesn't always work as well as you with all that prep even, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I guess, a letdown to know that it's that structured and practiced and rehearsed and written and scripted in both the good ways and bad ways that implies. But I think it's equally fascinating when you tell
Yeah.
people and you see their reaction that a 30-minute episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway is a distillation of a taping that might have gone 3.5 hours, where
That's
they're
interesting.
just like throwing stuff at the wall, throwing stuff at the wall, throwing stuff at the wall. And you might, if you're lucky, get 22 minutes of gold that you can distill into that episode. And then people think these guys are just the funniest people in the world. Everything they do is funny, 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 funny. And yeah, the stuff that you see was really, really funny. And what you didn't see is all the stuff that they threw that didn't quite land or didn't quite work
Right.
or wasn't quite gelling.
Yeah, I'm just your movie theater thing. I'm looking forward to that debate. I hope you're doing it. But I was at Grand Park Theater, and you'll know it well because that's sounds like it's your neighborhood. But so they have these beautiful couches now, where you're at the movie theater, but you're in these 2-seater love seat couches. So people bring their blankets from home.
Is this your joke?
No, this isn't my
Okay.
joke. But anyway, so the guy right beside me, he's got his blanket on, and he's got these huge stinking bare feet sticking out the end
Oh,
of
like
his.
slippers.
Yeah.
Like slippers.
No, bare feet.
Oh, bare feet. Not
Not
like,
bare-
Not like bare feet. Like
Not those
okay.
Like cow feet, horse feet.
Yeah.
With his
right.
like curled yellow toenails and his like varicose veins, and it's like, God, like this isn't really what I had signed up for when I paid the premium price to watch this. Anyway, yeah. So
That is that's atrocious manners. That is atrocious.
that is
public
atrocious
right there.
manners. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
So you wrote for this hour. This hour is 22 minutes for 15 years. Did you say?
Yeah, there's probably 6 years that I was like full time on the ground in Halifax.
Wow.
In the office every day, and then started having a family back here in Winnipeg, and so there was a season where my wife at the time, because I have a blended family now, but the woman I was married to at the time, the mother of my biological children, she and I brought our newborn out for a season. God bless her. She was like, all right, let's go, and we'll be out there for a few months, and I'll take care of the kid during the day, and you go to work, and we'll come home, and we'll make dinner, and we'll go for a walk in the park, and that'll be our life. And so we did that for a season. And then, over the summer break, we were like, is this like, do we see ourselves doing this with a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old? And what happens when, So we made the decision. I said to the show, like, this has been wonderful and what an opportunity, and thank you so much, but I don't think I can see myself like coming back. And it's like sort of 3 months in the fall and then another 3 months after the Christmas break. I can't see us doing that again and again and again. And they said, okay, well, totally understand and appreciate you, and see you down the road, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe like 3-4 weeks later, they emailed and said, would you consider contributing from Winnipeg? And I said, I would absolutely consider
right on.
contributing from
Yeah.
Winnipeg.
Yeah, awesome.
I didn't think that was an option. And I thought, and I kind of, I'm not sure if I'd pitched it if they would have said yes, but I guess in a weird way, there's a possibility that, my being willing to walk away was a great negotiating tactic I didn't know I was employing.
Power play. Yeah, that's right.
I was a total power play. All right, I'm out of here, you guys. Come crawling after me. But no, I guess they, and for them it meant, they don't have to fly me out. They don't have to put me up. They don't have to give me a per diem, right? So they can still get a contributor. But yeah, so I did that kind of full time for a few seasons, and then I kind of stepped down and just did it like a 0.6 kind of job, where I was given sort of a, they wanted this much from me each week that I would like pitch to them. And I think, the same people who might be surprised to find out the Debaters is scripted, or would also be surprised to find out, like, when you see the 22 minutes that are on this hour as 22 minutes, how much material got generated that week that didn't move forward at all, right? You might hear like, 8 sketches, but the writing room wrote 55 sketches.
Right. Right.
And, you might hear like 10 jokes, those desk jokes about, this happened in the news this week and here's a punchline. And the next anchor, right, the prime minister had said this and here's a punchline, right? So you might hear like 10 or 12 of those jokes. And we wrote literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And, like every week I would submit to the show from Winnipeg like a minimum of like 75 jokes like that.
Every week?
And every week.
God.
And so you're just like,
That's
you're trying to
incredible.
churn out, like I would just try to churn out like about, 20 a day. And sometimes I can do it, fairly quickly. And sometimes you're just like pounding your head against the wall going, I don't know anymore. But, and so like in a good week, I would, having submitted 75, if I got like 5 or 6 in the show, I was crushing it. I was just crushing it, right? I was just like, "Meh." But sometimes you get 1 or 2, and sometimes you get none, and you're like, well, I guess I got to practice doing the thing I love and get paid for it.
There we go.
That's the best spin I could put on it.
I just wonder if there's an extension message in there, like. I don't know, because I think we have an idea, like there's 5 things that we want to get across to farmers. But like to think of writing 75 jokes every week, just like is there something like, I'm just like, how do we take that notion of like sort of overloading the system and finding what works, rather than just like trying one thing doesn't work, one thing doesn't work, one thing doesn't work. I don't know. I feel like there's something there. I just got to write the punchline.
Yeah, but I also think it's, also something that we read in your notes, Dean. It's like, or the notes Ashley had for us. I was like, it's kind of what you don't say sometimes is where the meaning is. And I feel like there's something like that. Listeners will hear this and they'll get what they
your bifocal joke your bifocal joke is a classic example of not actually having to say the punchline,
right,
or not having to say the joke. So I like that. Yeah, but so what you don't say. Can we go?
I think
stick with that?
I mean, the way I would explain it, and it might be straying from where you're intending to take this, but I think a tried and true joke structure is saying exactly enough and not more, saying just enough that allows the audience to infer what it is that you're wanting them to infer. So if I had said, if you say, and now my mom would like bifocal so that my dad's dick looked bigger, that's mildly funny as an idea, but it's not going to get half the laugh because
Yeah.
I've explained the joke,
Right.
right? And comedy is all about allowing the audience to make that
To get it.
connection
Yeah.
from right what you've said to what that means, and once they make that connection and they all make it at the same time, that's what creates that aha laugh moment. It's a fascinating, mysterious.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see, the science of it, because there is a science
Right.
aspect to it.
It's kind of like when you're reading a book and you create the scene in your head. So the author doesn't have to describe every minute detail. You kind of
Yeah.
you create an
You
image,
fill in the
and
gaps,
it's
yeah.
probably the same. Not probably. I would say it is the same with comedy. Is that you just kind of and it kind of goes back to your brevity point that we kind of touched on, but really hadn't dug into, is the importance of saying as few words as possible, and then just letting the audience fill in the joke. I kind of like that message. Yeah.
You know,
I want to go back to sorry, Jay.
Yeah,
I
no,
want to
that's
go
good. I'm
back
ready.
to this
Yeah.
hour's 22 minutes and just like is that show kind of is it like, I listen to comedians talk about kind of where they cut their teeth in in this, the States. They talk about like groundlings. They talk about like these kind of crucibles, right?
Yeah.
Were you in one? Were you in like the Canadian comedy crucible?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there aren't a lot of those
Yeah.
in Canada, unfortunately, but that is definitely one of them. And 22 Minutes, I think, does a really good job of, like, there are tons and tons and tons of people who have 22 minutes writing credits
Mm-hmm.
in their bio, which is a testament to the fact that the show is always looking for, they'll if you're a funny person and you apply, and people who have been in the room vouch for you, and you're willing to come for a 2-week tryout, they will give so many funny comics a tryout in the room. And a lot of them, you know swim and don't sink. A lot of them like it and don't hate it.
Mm.
But if you sink or you hate it, then go do not that. um, but yeah, I I found it really like being thrown in the deep end in terms of the amount that you're asked to generate every week, and just be funny, be funny, be funny on demand. And it got you, like, I really credit it with helping me not be precious about,
Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
like, before that I was like, oh, I'll just wait for inspiration to strike, and then I'll write it down, and then I'll tinker with it. And you get really precious about everything. And that experience really just taught me, just sit down and start working, and just put something on the page, and just keep
Mm.
Mm.
right. Roger Ebert would say that inspiration strikes while you're doing the work. You don't, like, wait for inspiration to
Oh, yeah.
strike. You sit down to do the work, and it'll come. So it really helped me to get over that hump and get out of my own way. And years later, I would go to work with a team at Montreal at Just for Laughs, writing material for celebrity hosts who aren't comics. And by that point, I felt comfortable enough to just go, here's a bunch of jokes
Right.
that might work, and here's a bunch of premises that might work. And if you
Mm.
don't like any of those, I'm not going to freak out. I'll just go, okay, I'll go come up with a bunch more and pitch you a bunch more.
Mm.
And so you just stop being precious about it, and you stop taking it personally, and you just go, I'm just going to keep generating stuff off the conveyor belt, and you pick the ones you like, and you throw the ones that don't like in the garbage. And sometimes you get frustrated because you keep throwing stuff against the wall and it's not sticking. But I you get past that point where you're like panicked. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if any of this is good. Like, you just go, well, a lot
Yeah.
of it's not going to be good, but I'll just trust that
Yeah.
some of it will be.
And
'Cause-
so with
Yeah.
these 70, just back to these 75 jokes, would you read the Globe and Mail or listen to CBC News and just say, okay, such and such did this. How do I make a funny twist on that? And you just kind of just work through the news of the day.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, you just keep scrolling through the news, and top headlines, science discoveries, weird things, right? This crazy thing happened in this town, and then the challenge is you got to have a punchline that's funnier than the crazy thing that happened.
Yeah.
And you just keep, and half the battle is like shaping the setup so that it sets you up for a punchline. There was a great tweet from a late night writer who had written for Seth Meyers and all the American late night shows, where she just said, for any aspiring late night joke writers, here's a list of like 40 turns that can help you find a punchline. And so it would be like, it would be something as simple as, but to be fair, right? Something as simple as that, right? So you just say, okay, here's the setup. President Trump said this, but to be fair, right? Or, but on the other hand, right, just these little phrases that would help you turn from the fact to what the joke might be. So you just kind of, you can just sort of cycle through these and say, what comes to mind? If I say, okay, to be fair, what's the other side of this story? What's the
I like that.
right? What's the ridiculous alternative to what we're talking about? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I like that. I might have to try to find that.
Yeah.
So Dean, when you think about all your favorite comics, or even just any presentations that you've heard, maybe even not comic related or comedy related, like what are the communications skills that, like, 2 or 3 things that you think are essential to getting a point across?
Yeah, I mean, I think the essential things would be, I mean, I'm trying to like, I want to not miss any obvious ones, but obviously, I think being present and just sort of feeling what you're saying is essential. I think slowing down and not racing through is essential. And I think sort of knowing what your endpoint is might be essential, because I've something I've noticed about myself is when I'm from time to time interviewed, like I'm being interviewed now, I will start talking and I have no idea where I think I am intending to go. I'm just like talking because I'm being expected to fill some time, because they stopped talking and now it's my turn. And so, I think when you step up in front of people to say something, to know, how will I know when I'm done, basically? And where is it that I want to take them? And when will I know we've arrived? And how do I let them know we've arrived?
How do I know I'm done? That's great.
Yeah.
So, sometimes people are done within the first 10 minutes, which is okay. I bet they've got an hour-long slot to fill. And so they give us a bunch of boring slides to look at.
Yep.
So I think it's been a great, I'm not wrapping up right now. Maybe my producer's telling me to, but there's been so much good stuff here. Like, I know you asked Dean to kind of distill things, and I just watching your response, Dean, I'm like, I bet it might be one of those things where you walk away from it, you're like, oh, but I didn't say that for essential skills. But there's been so much covered in this that I think like a lot of our listeners will get a lot from this conversation. And I just love the juxtaposition, if it is one, of comedy and ag extension. I think it's great. And I think ag needs more of this, like kind of like bringing in from other sources. And I think comedy is just such an excellent
my
source.
dad, so my great uncle was a guy named Jack Forbes from Winnipeg, and he worked for Manitoba Agriculture, and he would start off every presentation. I never heard him speak, but my dad talks about this, with just a running litany of jokes. And everyone would just be so into it. And then he would go on to like, and now we're going to talk about how to control your wild oats and why it's important to tank mix your herbicides. And it was like, okay, well, yeah, you got us, Jack. Like we're here for the ride now. But no, like I'm going to say nobody. Yeah. But to be fair, his jokes are terrible. No, but no, people don't tell jokes anymore. And so Toban and I, we were doing this little presentation with this group, and this one young woman said, so how do you feel about telling jokes? And I was like, whoa, like that's risky because it could fall flat. And I said, just like make eye contact and be enthusiastic. And now I'm thinking, well, maybe that was the wrong advice. Because if she's got any inclination to tell a joke, she probably should just go for it. Given what my dad was telling me about this Jack Forbes character, who some people might remember, but because if you can do it, boy, you can be effective, especially because nobody else is doing it.
You made it sound like you shut her down. I was there. I don't think you did.
I didn't?
No,
okay,
no,
good.
You didn't. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a risk reward thing, right? Because it's not fun when you try to say, I'm just going to like grease the wheels with a joke, and then it doesn't land. And now you feel like you're digging yourself out of a hole you made for yourself. Yeah. And then, in 2026, there's also the risk that you tell a joke that you think is totally onside, and somebody's like, that was really not a workplace appropriate joke. Yeah. And they might be right, or they might have an opinion that, that isn't necessarily right. But, what's coming to mind right now is I remember being a kid. And I don't know who the mayor at the time would have been, if it was Bill Norrie, but there was a controversy because he got up to do a speech at an event, and he thought, I'll open with a joke. And the joke went, there's this boy and his parents are getting divorced, and the judge says, do you want to live with your mom? And he says, no, my mom beats me. Do you want to live with your dad? No, my dad beats me. Well, who do you want to live with? I want to live with the Winnipeg Jets. They don't beat anybody.
Yeah.
And as a kid, so I'm listening to the radio and they're telling the story of Bill Norrie being in trouble and asked for an apology because he's making light of domestic abuse of a child. And as a kid, I was like, but he's not making light of domestic abuse of children. He's making fun of the Jets because the word beat has two meanings. And that's all that was. But even today, we could have a debate about whether that joke is onside or not, and if it's making light of something that's not funny and is very serious and impacts families and is horrible and awful. And I think reasonable people can have different opinions about it, but if an audience is uncomfortable with the content of the joke you told, you can be clear of conscience in defending it, and it doesn't matter. You've made your audience uncomfortable. And sometimes the audience will be uncomfortable not because they personally are offended. They're uncomfortable because they're worried other people around them are offended, and they don't want to be seen laughing at something that could be offensive to other people. And so it's a very murky kind of pool to wade into. But
I watched
I love that.
I watched the roast of Kevin Hart on Netflix.
Yeah.
3 hours. But there was no stone left unturned. Like they broke every possible taboo you can imagine. So there's still a place for it, I guess, but it's buried in Netflix somewhere.
Yeah. And I am a big fan of, truly tasteless roast jokes because the intention is very clear. The rules are very clear. I always find it really, I think about, I think there was what was the reality show with The Situation, and remember him? Oh, Jersey Shore. They had some guys from the Jersey Shore as part of a roast years ago, and they had obviously writers, pitching them jokes and just tanking with these horribly tasteless jokes. And when you're bombing with something that's offensive about wishing you had committed suicide or right, it's just it's the cringiest, most awful thing. But when they land and they're so mean and personal, it's just one of the best things. Nikki Glazer. Go to YouTube and look Nikki Glazer roast highlights, and she just crushes it.
That is amazing.
So Dean, just the last thought. So
Jay, are you not going to? Jay has a joke.
Yeah.
He's been preparing. Are you not going to say it?
Should I?
I feel like you should.
I feel like you'll regret it if you don't.
Yeah. I have. He hasn't I asked for it.
So
He
this
said he
is a
wouldn't come.
classic case of practicing. Anyway,
This is it.
so my grandma, she grew up on a farm in Minnedosa, but for all my life lived in Winnipeg and was a lifelong liberal. And so when I was a kid, Pierre Trudeau, the prime minister at the time, came to Winnipeg, and he was doing some sort of opening at a New Flyer, which makes buses in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I was a little kid, and so Pierre Trudeau's there with his white foreman's helmet on, and he's holding this massive wrench, like a wrench the size of me. And so my grandma, she turns to me and said, she said, "Good night, Jay." So good night was like her swear word. So there's Trudeau with his white helmet and this massive wrench, and she says, "Good night, Jay. Have you ever seen a tool as big as that?"
That's good. That's good.
Anyway, so farmers don't like. This is me explaining the joke, but Pierre Trudeau rubbed a lot of people
Yes.
the wrong way in
Yeah.
the prairies. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So I've been working on that one. might need some work.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
But
I like it
so,
too.
just a bit of backstory, and I totally that's totally made up, and I ripped off that. So I was listening to a podcast about Margaret Thatcher, and apparently she had a slip of the tongue and said that exact line. Have you ever seen a tool as big as that? But she was talking about this guy holding this big wrench, but everyone started killing themselves laughing because right, everyone knew the inside joke was that it was about this particular person, not the wrench. Anyway, I appreciate you both listening.
I'm glad you did it. I could tell you were a little nervous.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, it was great.
It's like walking out on the diving board. Oh, that's
Totally.
that's a long way down.
Yeah. Anyway, when you got the email from me and Toban saying, "Could you come on this agriculture related podcast?"
Yeah.
What did you first think?
I'm thinking the same thing I'm thinking right now, which is I don't think I have anything relatable to say on an agricultural podcast.
It'll never go to air. It's just that's
But
right.
if you want to chat, I'm up to chat.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of respect for comedians because for reasons I've said already, where
Because you are one.
obviously not. Well, hey, I'll get back up there and try that joke again. I'll polish it in front of the mirror and record myself. But which is great advice, by the way.
Yeah.
Just practice in front of a mirror. Record yourself if you're up for it. But that is scary. But just about why do I have so much respect for comics is that you stand up there, you put your heart on your sleeve. You try to relate to people, which is so key and so distant sometimes in some of the presentations I listen to. You practice your craft and you work on relating to the audience and kind of riffing off the audience. And those are all skills. And so you're thinking like, what do I have to offer? Those are amazing skills that we need to hear more about in the world of communications in general and agriculture extension specifically. So this is why we thought that you'd be great, and you have been. You nailed it
for sure. And
Yeah.
I was sort of add to that. I mean, there's no question in this, but like the whole idea, I love it of comics. There's sort of so much depth, and I've said this before during this interview, but like it's like thoughts about thoughts. And I studied philosophy at the University of Winnipeg. I did philosophy and politics for my undergrad. So it's always kind of like second order thinking. Like you have to be able to be present, but you also have to be able to take a step back and look at yourself inside the auditorium as well. And like there's so much of that depth going on from a communications perspective and just from a way to kind of be. And I just love it. And I think you guys are the the top of the heap in terms of communicators. I really do, yeah. And you've certainly proven that.
Very kind.
Yeah,
Well, it's very kind. I appreciate that a lot.
yeah. Right. Yeah. Thanks so much. Anything you wanted to say on this podcast that you didn't get a chance to?
I don't know. No, I think we covered a lot of ground. I'm really grateful.
Yeah. It's been amazing. But thank you so much, Dean, for taking the time.
Thanks, Dean.
My pleasure.
Hey there, listeners. If you're enjoying the conversations here on The Extensionists, you will probably love to get our newsletter.
Yeah, it's the best way to stay connected with us, with Jay and myself, yours truly. I'm excited about the newsletter, to be honest with you, because I think...
Why are you excited
Well,
about
so many of our guests have...
Why are you excited about it?
Say that differently, Jay. So many of our guests they say so many things of interest, right? And I feel like the newsletter will be a great way to share that with our listeners.
Like quick take-homes?
Yeah.
Summaries?
Yeah, absolutely.
One-liners?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think about each guest, we could probably write a whole bunch of articles from each of our guests, right? So to give our newsletter subscribers like summaries of, the key takeaways of these things, plus information on upcoming guests. All the listeners have to do is go to theextensionists.com and follow the prompts to sign up for the newsletter. I think it'll be great.
Well, that was so fun.
Yeah, it was everything I had hoped.
And people won't know this, but we recorded that at 8 a.m. So I'm impressed.
Are you saying that's early?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously not for farmers necessarily, especially in seeding season.
Yeah, you lazy people saying 8:30 in the morning.
I just think sometimes comedians, they stay up late, but he's a responsible father now. He's an early riser, not a late night smoky bar kind of guy anymore. But yeah,
but he was funny.
Yeah,
and he was good. Like I know, I loved how. I just got the overwhelming sense that there's a lot of content in this episode that didn't need us to summarize. That didn't require us to summarize, right? That people can grab and kind of use on their own. Because I feel like, I don't know why this one stood out to me that way, but it did.
Yeah. And was there a memorable takeaway for you?
There were quite a few. Oh, I didn't ask him what, because he sings in an a cappella group. I was going to ask him which.
Yeah, you
group.
Mentioned it at the beginning, but you didn't. You didn't dig into that one.
I love. I mean, he did talk about practice a little bit, but he talked about practice a lot. He just didn't use the word practice. I love the idea of just like being, like knowing where you want to go with things and getting that down before you get up there. And even some of the examples of comics who are like script out every word and just
because they can't ad lib. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and just like figure it out, and then like listen to yourself, and like do those things that you hate doing. Yeah, like I have trouble reading my work after I've written after it's published. I mean. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on, but I know you have something to say. So
I was just going to fixated on this fact that he would write 75 jokes a week for this hour is 22 minutes.
So what I wanted to get from him was I was going to ask him if he would share, because I'm sure he saved those Word docs or however he sent them, right? If he would share one of them. Oh yeah. Right? Like, what does 75 jokes look like?
Yeah. All one-liners.
Is it like just like aphorisms? Anyway.
And these 40 turns. So Mark Carney is off to Davos to meet with the World Economic Forum. Well, I don't know. That I'm not. I'm just setting up. So you just take some mundane occurrence and then you turn it into a joke, and you're just gonna go through the paper, go through the news, and like every single thing you find. And he talks about the science. So this one radio show I like to listen to, it's called Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's a comedy news show, they call it. It's out of National Public Radio and out of Chicago. But it's just all about making jokes about the news. And sometimes they might find the most obscure scientific discovery, and then they just go to town on that. And it's really quite fun. And I should pay attention to how they write their jokes, and then maybe we could start actually doing some agronomy jokes.
Yeah, I feel like why not, right?
Yeah.
Why not try some of this stuff out?
My favorite joke is a man walks into the psychiatrist's office wearing nothing but saran wrap underwear.
Oh, you've told me this, but say it again. Say it again.
Yeah. So this guy walks into the psychiatrist's office wearing nothing but saran wrap underwear, and the psychiatrist says, "Well, I can clearly see you're nuts." And then, so my son, who was always good at just cracking jokes, and he loved an audience. And I don't know whether he still does that, but so he would he'd get up in front of my family and he'd say, yeah. So a guy, and he's 8 years old or something, guy walks into the psychiatrist's office wearing nothing but saran wrap underpants. And the psychiatrist says, well, I can clearly see your balls. I totally missed the double entendre of the joke, but it was for me funnier than even the original. But but I actually tell that story now. So I set up with the real joke, and then I tell Liam's version. So
I could imagine being.
I didn't say a swear, so I think we can keep that.
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's at the end of nobody will be listening at this edge of the podcast anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's really really good to go based on that. Oh, people aren't listening anymore. Anyway.
Dean's gone.
Thank you to our sponsor. Yeah. No.
Well, we have
Sax
to keep
underwear.
That.
Yeah.
Sax clear see-through underwear.
Saran wrap underwear. Okay, this is good. Giving Abby some editing responsibilities here. But no, it was. I couldn't imagine being 18 or 19, whatever old he was, and then going up in front of an audience and doing this. I mean, I guess that's twofold. So one is maybe I could because at a certain age you just don't care.
Yeah.
But I know like Doug Darling from Tripwire, he's a big storyteller, and he does comedy once in a while.
Okay.
He goes up and does these amateur. Like I couldn't imagine now getting up there and just like kind of facing your demons and like just being like, you know what, I'm gonna wrestle with whatever I need to wrestle with internally to get up there and do this.
I can feel my heart beating
Yes.
in my chest right now, just imagining it.
It is making me anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great one.
So many communication tips, and I mean, I really think Dean had a lot to offer.
Yeah.
More than I think he thought.
We should take him on tour with us.
Well, I was thinking like we should, or like really get Ag Days to like be in touch with him over a bit. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that'd be great.
This has been the Extensionists podcast. I'm Jay Whetter.
And I'm Toban Dyck.
Till next time. This has been a Burr Forest Group production.
Jay, did you know that the podcast couldn't happen with the hard work of the people behind the scenes?
And I've got their names right here. They are Abby Wall, producer and editor, Ashley Robinson, researcher, and Michelle McMullen, marketer.